Welcome back to our channel World of Coins, the place where we uncover hidden treasures in your coin collection. Have you ever wondered if that old coins could be worth thousands or even millions? Well, today's your lucky day. We're diving into some of the rarest and most valuable US coins that might be sitting right under your nose. Let's jump in and see if you've got a fortune waiting to be discovered. Top 1. What if I told you that a small, silver-colored coin sitting quietly in your drawer, your change jar, or even your pocket might be worth more than a brand new luxury car? What if that old 5-cent piece, something so ordinary you'd barely glance at it, could actually be a hidden treasure worth thousands upon thousands of dollars? It may sound unbelievable, but it's real. And today, we're going to explore one of the most unexpected and fascinating coins in American history, the 1964 Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel is a familiar sight to most Americans. Introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and has since become one of the longest-running coin designs in the country's history. The front, or obverse, features a sharp, distinguished portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. The reverse proudly displays Monticello, his iconic Virginia estate. The coin is simple, elegant, and rich in symbolism. But in 1964, the story of the Jefferson nickel took an intriguing turn, one that would set the stage for one of the most sought-after coins ever struck by the U.S. Mint. Let's take a step back into that year. 1964 was a turbulent time in American history. The country was facing the escalating Vietnam War, the civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and coin hoarding was becoming a serious issue. Because of rising silver prices, people were pulling coins from circulation, especially dimes, quarters, and half dollars made of 90% silver. Even though the nickel didn't contain silver, fear and speculation caused people to hoard all coins, including the humble nickel. To combat the growing coin shortage, the U.S. Mint ramped up production. In fact, 1964 became the single highest mintage year for Jefferson nickels. More than 2.8 billion were struck between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Because of this massive quantity, most people assume the 1964 nickel is worthless. After all, how could something so common be valuable? But here's the twist: not all 1964 nickels are the same. While most of them remain common, there are extremely rare varieties and error coins from that year that are worth far more than 5 cents. Let's talk about what to look for. First, there are the full steps nickels. These are Jefferson nickels that show complete, uninterrupted steps on the front porch of Monticello, right on the reverse side of the coin. Most coins, even fresh from the mint, show wear or weak strikes in this area. A true full steps coin from 1964 is exceptionally rare, especially in high grades. Collectors hunt for these with laser precision because they know just how difficult they are to find. Even the slightest break in the lines disqualifies the coin from full step status, but that's just the beginning. There are also rare die varieties and mint errors that make 1964 nickels incredibly valuable. Some coins were struck with overused or misaligned dies, resulting in doubled images, die clashes, or off-center strikes. Others have unique planchet errors, like being struck on the wrong metal or with missing design details. These errors weren't supposed to make it into circulation, but a few managed to slip through, making them prized finds for those lucky enough to spot them. Another intriguing mystery surrounding the 1964 nickel is the story of the missing proof nickels. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors using polished dies and planchets, producing coins with mirror-like surfaces. Although no official proof nickels were released to the public in 1964 due to the coin shortage, rumors and evidence suggest that a few were still secretly made. These uncirculated proof-like 1964 nickels, if genuine, are ultra-rare and can command extraordinary prices. Now let's get into grading. This is where the real money starts to shine. A Jefferson nickel from 1964 in circulated condition won't turn heads. But if you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition, especially one with full steps or a known error, it could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. And if it's graded at a top-tier level, such as MS-67 or MS-68, it enters an entirely different category. And now comes the most incredible part of this story. A collector, meticulously going through rolls of nickels, discovered a coin that seemed too good to be true. It was a 1964 D. Jefferson nickel, but this wasn't just any nickel. The coin had a brilliant, untouched surface, its details sharp, its edges flawless. The steps on Monticello were crystal clear. The coin was submitted to a top grading company, where it received an astonishingly high mint state grade, along with the coveted full steps designation. At first, its beauty alone made it a standout. But when experts examined it closely, they realized this coin was one of the finest examples ever found. It was virtually perfect, an elite survivor from a sea of billions. When this nickel went up for auction, collectors didn't hesitate. The bids came fast, rising higher with every passing minute. By the time the auctioneer called the final bid, the room was in awe. That one nickel, minted in 1964 and worth just 5 cents in the eyes of most, had just sold for an incredible $130,000, yes. $130,000. For a 5-cent coin. It's almost unbelievable, but it's real. And it's a reminder that even the smallest, most overlooked objects in our everyday lives can carry incredible value. It only takes the right combination of rarity, condition, and attention to detail. So next time you have a handful of change, don't just drop it in a jar or spend it without a second thought. Look closely. Especially at those nickels. You never know when one of them might turn out to be a true American treasure. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by rare coins and the hidden stories they carry, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another amazing discovery. And tell us in the comments, have you ever found a coin you thought might be worth more than its face value? You could be just one coin away from a life-changing find. Top 2. Every once in a while, something incredibly valuable hides in the most ordinary places. Not in a bank vault, not in a collector's safe, but right there, in a pocket, in an old drawer, or buried deep within a forgotten change jar. And today, we're diving into one such unbelievable story. It's not about gold or silver, diamonds or treasure maps. It's about a small 5-cent coin minted in 1973. Yes, a Jefferson nickel. A coin so common that we often don't think twice about it. But hidden among those countless coins is a version of the 1973 Jefferson nickel that could change everything. At first glance, there's nothing unusual about the 1973 nickel. It features the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the front, a design that has been a staple of American coinage since 1938. On the reverse is his famous Virginia home, Monticello. Millions of these coins were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and to most people, they are simply spare change. But in the world of coin collecting, even the most familiar designs can conceal something extraordinary. Let's rewind for a moment. The early 1970s were a time of political tension, economic uncertainty, and growing distrust in financial systems. Coins remained stable in their composition, but behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was constantly working to maintain quality and demand. In 1973 alone, over 384 million Jefferson nickels were struck in Philadelphia and nearly 400 million in Denver. With so many in circulation, it seems unlikely that any one of them would be worth more than face value. But coin collectors know better. The secret lies in the details. Because while most 1973 nickels were ordinary, a small number of them were struck with extraordinary precision, creating what collectors call full steps nickels. These are coins where every single stair step leading up to Monticello is clearly visible and completely uninterrupted. Sounds simple, right? But in reality, finding a true full steps nickel from 1973 is a serious challenge. That year, many of the dies used by the mint had already been heavily worn, which resulted in soft, incomplete strikes, especially in the area of those steps. That's what makes a full steps nickel so rare. It shows that the coin was struck using a fresh die and under perfect conditions, something that happened very infrequently. If your 1973 nickel has sharp lines on the reverse, with each step visible and separated, you could be holding something special, but it doesn't stop there. Among the rare 1973 nickels, there are also coins that feature minting errors, unintentional mistakes that occurred during production. These include off-center strikes, where the coin design is misaligned, die clashes, where parts of the design from one side appear faintly on the other side, double dies, where parts of the lettering or image appear doubled due to a misaligned die, and even coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning they were mistakenly minted on a metal blank intended for a different coin. Each of these types of errors increases a coin's rarity, and therefore, its value. But the most powerful combination is when one of these minting errors is found on a high-grade full steps coin. That's the jackpot for collectors. Now let's talk about condition. Any coin that's been circulating for 50 years is likely to show its age, scratches, dull surfaces, signs of wear. But a few lucky nickels from 1973 were preserved in pristine condition, never touched by time. These coins often came from sealed mint sets or careful collectors who stored them away from heat, moisture, and human contact. If a 1973 nickel not only has an error or full steps designation but is also in mint state condition, say, MS66 or MS67, it becomes a true rarity, and this is exactly what happened with one stunning 1973 Jefferson nickel. It was discovered by a longtime collector who had inherited a small coin collection from a relative. Among rolls of average coins, one nickel stood out. It looked flawless, bright luster, sharp edges, and incredible detail. Under magnification, the steps on Monticello were bold and unbroken. Not one, not two, but all 6 steps were perfectly visible. Further inspection revealed a slight doubling on the lettering, a rare die variety. The coin was then submitted to a leading grading service, where it received one of the highest grades ever recorded for a 1973 Jefferson nickel. When this coin hit the auction block, the buzz spread quickly through the collecting community. Experts knew they were looking at something historic. A perfect storm of rarity, condition, and uniqueness. The bidding began with cautious excitement, but it didn't stay cautious for long. Price after price, bid after bid, it climbed higher and higher. Collectors from across the country were determined to own it, and when the auctioneer finally dropped the hammer, the crowd was stunned. That single 5-cent coin, a 1973 Jefferson nickel with full steps, a rare error, and mint state perfection, was sold for a breathtaking $110,000. Yes. You heard that right. $110,000. For a 5-cent coin, this story is more than a tale of value, it's a lesson in observation. It reminds us that the smallest things can carry hidden importance. It tells us that value isn't always visible on the surface. Sometimes, it takes a little patience, a little knowledge, and a little curiosity to uncover something life-changing. So next time you have a handful of coins, take a closer look. Examine those nickels. Look at the steps, study the shine, and check for details most people overlook. Because somewhere out there, one of these coins could be the next legendary discovery. Thanks for watching. If stories like this fascinate you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And tell us in the comments, what's the most interesting coin you've ever found? You never know, the next hidden treasure might be sitting in your change right now. Top 3. Imagine rummaging through an old coin jar, the kind that's been sitting on a shelf for years, untouched, collecting dust. You're not looking for anything special, just a few coins to use at the store or maybe to feed a parking meter. But in that simple pile of pocket change, you spot something that looks just like any other nickel. It's dated 1974. No big deal, right? It's just 5 cents. But what if I told you that very coin could be worth a fortune? What if that tiny piece of metal, barely larger than your thumbnail, held a hidden secret, a secret that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars? Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the incredible world of the 1974 Jefferson nickel. A coin so ordinary that most people wouldn't give it a second thought. But beneath its simple design lies a story that involves rarity, historical quirks, surprising minting errors, and a value that could blow your mind. The Jefferson nickel is one of the longest-running and most iconic coins in American history. First issued in 1938, it features the strong, dignified profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, and on the reverse, his historic Virginia estate, Monticello. Designed by sculptor Felix Schlag, the coin has been a steady part of American pockets and purses for decades. And by 1974, it was still going strong, but the early 1970s were not a calm time in the world of U.S. currency. The country was navigating through a storm of inflation, fuel shortages, and rising economic pressure. Precious metal prices were fluctuating, and the U.S. Mint was working under stress to produce enough coins to meet public demand. Mistakes were bound to happen, and in the case of the 1974 Jefferson nickel, some of those mistakes turned out to be incredibly valuable. In that year alone, the Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of nickels. To be precise, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 601 million, while the Denver Mint added another 277 million to the mix. With numbers like that, it's no surprise that most people view the 1974 nickel as completely common. But the key to understanding why some of these coins are so valuable lies in the details. One of the biggest factors that can elevate a nickel from everyday to extraordinary is the full steps designation. On the reverse of the coin, if you look closely at the base of Monticello, you'll see the front steps. On most circulated nickels, those steps are blurry, worn, or only partially visible. But in rare cases, usually due to a fresh die and a perfect strike, all 6 steps appear clearly and completely separated. When that happens, the coin qualifies as a full steps nickel, and its value rises instantly. Finding a 1974 nickel with full steps is tough. The dies used that year were often worn down from heavy use, resulting in weak or soft strikes. Combine that with the fact that most nickels were circulated, and it becomes extremely rare to find one in pristine condition with full steps. But they do exist, and when they show up in high mint state grades, collectors go wild for them. But there's more. In addition to full steps, the 1974 Jefferson nickel has produced some extremely rare error coins. We're talking about coins with double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, and even those struck on the wrong planchet. One of the most sought-after errors from 1974 includes nickels struck on leftover penny planchets, which are copper and lighter in color. If you see a 1974 nickel that looks slightly reddish, you might want to grab a scale, because if it weighs less than 5 grams, it could be a minting mistake worth serious money. There's also a version of the 1974 D nickel that has drawn attention due to die clashes and odd reverse design quirks, details that make the coin unique and more desirable to collectors. These kinds of variations often slip through unnoticed until someone with a trained eye spots them, but the real game changer is condition. A coin that has been in circulation for decades is likely to have scratches, dings, discoloration, and other signs of wear. But a coin that has been perfectly preserved, especially one stored in a sealed mint set or protected from the elements, can achieve a high mint state grade, such as MS65, MS66, or even higher. And this brings us to the most amazing part of the story. A few years ago, a collector discovered a 1974 Jefferson nickel tucked inside an old roll of coins purchased at a yard sale. At first, it didn't seem special. But under bright light and magnification, it revealed something incredible. Every single step on Monticello was crisp and clear. The coin gleamed with original luster. There were no nicks, no blemishes, and barely any contact marks at all. It was a full steps beauty, in near-perfect condition. The coin was submitted to a professional grading service, where it received one of the highest grades ever recorded for that year. What happened next stunned even the experts. The coin went up for auction, and collectors immediately recognized its significance. This wasn't just another nickel, it was one of the best preserved examples of a 1974 full steps Jefferson nickel ever seen. The bidding war that followed was intense, as seasoned numismatists and investors pushed the price higher and higher, and when the final bid was called, the hammer fell at an astonishing price of $100,000. Yes. That's right. $100,000 for a 5-cent coin. So the next time you glance at a nickel, especially one from 1974, pause for a moment. Look at the steps. Check for odd colors, off-center designs, or doubling. Because the difference between 5 cents and a 6-figure fortune might just be in your hand. Thanks for watching, and if you're fascinated by stories of hidden treasures like this one, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you never miss another rare coin discovery. And let us know in the comments, do you have a 1974 nickel in your collection? It might just be your golden ticket. Top 4. Most people walk past coins every day. They're in our pockets, dropped on sidewalks, sitting at the bottom of purses and glove compartments. We barely give them a second look. After all, what can a nickel really be worth? 5 cents, right? But what if I told you that a Jefferson nickel from the year 1979, yes, just a regular-looking 5-cent coin, could be hiding in plain sight and be worth more than most people make in an entire year? Today, we're about to uncover one of the most overlooked coins in modern U.S. coinage history, the 1979 Jefferson nickel. It's a coin that millions of Americans have handled without knowing it could hold secrets that make it incredibly valuable. This is not just a coin story, it's a lesson in how the smallest details can lead to the biggest surprises. Let's start with a bit of background. The Jefferson nickel has been in circulation since 1938, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. Designed by Felix Schlag, this coin remained relatively unchanged for decades, becoming a familiar piece of change in American life. By 1979, most people were used to seeing it. Nobody expected anything extraordinary from a coin so common, but here's where things get interesting. In 1979, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced over 875 million Jefferson nickels combined. With such high mintage numbers, you'd expect all the coins to be pretty much identical. But in reality, not all nickels are created equal. Some coins struck in 1979 ended up with unexpected characteristics, variations that turned a few otherwise average nickels into collector's gold. One of the key features that collectors look for in Jefferson nickels is what's known as full steps. This term refers to the staircase at the base of Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. On most coins, especially those that have seen circulation, these steps are worn down or were poorly struck at the mint. But in some rare cases, usually due to fresh dies and perfect minting conditions, the steps appear crisp and fully separated. A nickel with full steps is significantly more desirable than a standard strike. Finding a 1979 Jefferson nickel with full steps is no easy task. By that time, many dies were being overused and lacked the sharpness needed for perfect detail. But once in a while, a coin escapes the press in near-flawless form. Combine that with sharp steps and minimal blemishes, and suddenly, you've got something that serious collectors will fight for. But full steps isn't the only thing to look for. There are also rare minting errors that can send a nickel's value skyrocketing. Some 1979 nickels were struck off-center, creating an obvious and dramatic misalignment of the design. Others exhibit die cracks, doubled dies, or clashed dies, resulting in unusual distortions or duplications of Jefferson's features or the coin's lettering. These errors were never intended to reach circulation, and when they do, they're instantly prized by the numismatic community. And then there are planchet errors, instances where a coin was struck on the wrong metal blank. These mistakes are extremely rare, but a 1979 Jefferson nickel struck on a foreign coin's planchet or even on a blank intended for a different U.S. denomination is like finding buried treasure. But beyond all of that, the most crucial factor in a coin's value comes down to its grade. The grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, mint-state coin. Most coins that have been in circulation grade far lower due to wear and tear. But when a coin from 1979 surfaces in MS-67 or MS-68 condition, it's a game-changer, especially if it also features full steps or a major error. And now, here's where this story takes an unforgettable turn. Not long ago, a lifelong coin enthusiast was going through a batch of nickels purchased years earlier at a local flea market. Most of them were ordinary, well-worn coins. But one stood out. It was a 1979 D. Jefferson nickel that gleamed under the light. The coin had mirror-like luster, razor-sharp details, and, most importantly, all 6 steps on Monticello were clearly visible. Not only that, but the coin showed a subtle doubling on the lettering, a possible doubled die. The collector sent it off for certification, and the results were jaw-dropping. The coin received a stunning mint state 68 grade with full steps and a designation of a rare variety. When this coin went up for auction, it caused waves in the collecting world. Not only was it one of the finest known examples of its kind, but it also had the perfect storm of rarity, beauty, and historical intrigue. Collectors lined up, ready to place their bids. And the price began to rise, fast. What started as a 5-cent coin became the centerpiece of an intense bidding war. Phone calls, online bids, and in-person offers drove the auction higher and higher. The room held its breath as the final bid was placed. And then, the gavel fell, the winning bid, an astonishing $90,000, yes. A single Jefferson nickel from 1979, originally worth just 5 cents, was purchased for $90,000. This story is more than just about money. It's a reminder that sometimes, value hides in the smallest, most overlooked places. That even the most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary worth when we take the time to look a little closer. So the next time you're going through your spare change, don't just toss those nickels aside. Check the date. Examine the steps. Look for odd features or signs of rarity. Because there's always a chance that your next coin could be more than just currency, it could be a true collector's gem, waiting to be discovered. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more about coins that have made people rich overnight, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell. And in the comments below, tell us, have you ever found a coin that made you do a double take? Top 5. Coins pass through our hands every single day, at the grocery store, in coffee shops, or tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. But what if one of those coins, one that looks like any other, is actually a hidden treasure? What if a simple 5-cent piece sitting in your pocket right now is worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house? Sounds impossible, right? But stay with me, because today we're unlocking the hidden value behind one of the most overlooked coins in modern American history, the 1990 Jefferson nickel. Now, when most people hear Jefferson nickel, they probably picture a dull coin, used and forgotten, with a design that hasn't changed much over the decades. And they'd be right, on the surface. The obverse of the coin features the familiar face of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. His gaze is calm and serious, a reminder of the man who penned the Declaration of Independence. Flip the coin over, and you'll see his famous estate, Monticello, its steps and columns etched into American numismatic tradition. But while the design might be ordinary, what makes some 1990 Jefferson nickels so rare and valuable isn't what you can see at a glance, it's what hides in the fine details, in the precision of the strike, and sometimes, in the very mistakes that the mint never intended. In 1990, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels. Over 570 million from Philadelphia, and more than 382 million from Denver. With such high production numbers, it's easy to assume that every 1990 nickel is exactly the same. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In the world of coin collecting, the smallest difference can make a huge impact. One of the most sought-after features among Jefferson nickel collectors is the full steps designation. This refers to the base of Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. If all 6 steps leading up to the mansion are fully visible and unbroken, the coin qualifies as full steps, a rare and valuable detail, especially in later year Jefferson nickels like those from 1990. Most nickels struck that year failed to show full steps clearly. The dies were often worn or improperly aligned, leading to weak strikes and blurry steps. But occasionally, a perfect storm of fresh dies, precise pressure, and flawless metal would result in a coin with sharp, complete steps. These full steps coins are not only hard to find, but even harder to find in pristine, uncirculated condition. Now, add in another layer of intrigue: minting errors. Every once in a while, something goes wrong during the minting process. Maybe a coin is struck off-center, or the die is misaligned, or the metal blank is incorrect. These mistakes are rare, but they do happen. And when they happen on a coin that already has features like full steps, the value can skyrocket. There have been verified examples of 1990 Jefferson nickels with double die reverses, where the lettering and details on Monticello appear slightly duplicated. Others have shown dramatic off-center strikes, where parts of the design are literally missing. And then there are even coins struck on foreign planchets, blanks meant for coins from other countries that somehow ended up in the U.S. Mint's machinery. Coins like these break the mold, literally and figuratively. They turn a 5-cent piece into something collectors dream about finding, but rarity alone isn't enough to make a coin valuable. Condition matters, a lot. A coin that's been handled, spent, dropped, and rubbed against other coins for years will never reach the highest levels of value. But if a 1990 Jefferson nickel was pulled from circulation early, or better yet, came from a mint set and was stored carefully, it has the potential to grade high on the Sheldon scale. A grade of MS66, MS67, or higher with full steps. That's when things get serious, and that's exactly what happened in one incredible case that a dedicated coin collector, who had been sorting through mint sets from the early 90s, noticed something unusual. A 1990 D. Jefferson nickel shone just a bit brighter than the others. The details were sharper, the fields cleaner, and under magnification, the steps of Monticello were completely intact, no breaks, no wear. It was a true full-step specimen, but there was more. The coin also displayed a subtle but rare die variety, a slight doubling on the Monticello text and a minor rotation in strike alignment. It was so perfectly preserved, with blazing original luster and virtually no contact marks, that it seemed almost too good to be true. The collector submitted the coin to a professional grading service, and the result came back as mint state 67 full steps, with an error variety designation. When this coin reached the auction block, it drew attention from collectors across the country. They knew what they were looking at wasn't just rare, it was nearly one of a kind. And as the bids began, the numbers climbed higher than anyone expected. This wasn't just another nickel. This was a legend in the making, and when the final gavel came down, that single Jefferson nickel from 1990 sold for an unbelievable $70,000, yes. You heard that right. $70,000. For a 5-cent coin, this isn't just a story about money, it's a story about paying attention. It's about understanding that value doesn't always scream at you from the surface. Sometimes, it whispers in the tiniest details. So the next time you're sifting through change, or looking at that old coin collection sitting in a drawer, pause for a moment. Look closely. Because you just might be holding a hidden treasure. Thank you for watching, and if this story amazed you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss more fascinating stories from the world of rare coins. And let us know in the comments, have you checked your 1990 nickels lately? Because one of them could be worth a whole lot more than 5 cents.